All right, let's roll into this matchup like we're talking straight to the Bills Mafia. That same energy that hits every time Buffalo steps under the bright lights. There's something about Thursday night games that just feels different when Josh Allen is involved. It is almost like the guy was built for short week chaos. Every time the schedule squeezes the Bills, they seem to show up sharper, faster, and more locked in than anyone expects. That undefeated streak on these weekday primetime stages has turned into one of those running jokes among fans. The kind where you pretend it is superstition, but deep down you know it is rooted in real, cold numbers. When Allen gets less time to prepare, he somehow becomes more dangerous, more efficient, and more unpredictable. And the team around him taps into that rhythm like they all know exactly what is coming. But history does not win football games, especially not when you're lining up against a defense as nasty, disciplined, and explosive as the one Houston brings. This is not a unit you run through easily. This is not a group that gives up cheap plays or breaks assignments just because a big-name quarterback is on the other side. If anything, the Texans thrive on being the team that ruins offensive plans. That front seven crashes gaps, flies to the ball, and forces opponents to beat them in uncomfortable ways. That means Buffalo cannot just walk in leaning on the same script from last week. They need to find that blend that unlocks the offense. They need to stay patient enough to let their playmakers see the field, but aggressive enough to keep Houston guessing. It becomes this chess match inside the trenches, where every inch between the tackles matters more than usual. James Cook becomes a huge part of that conversation. Houston's front can rush the passer like crazy, but when it comes to pure physicality against the interior, there are moments where a team like Buffalo can sneak out small wins. Cook has the vision to punish those tiny gaps that only last a split second. If he can find himself one stride past the line of scrimmage before the defense fully collapses, then the whole offense opens up. Those downhill runs between the guards are not glamorous, but they're the kind of plays that keep the Bills on schedule and force Houston to squeeze their coverage into the middle. Once that happens, Allen starts seeing that second layer of the field the way he likes it, open enough to fire, tight enough to force defenders into mistakes. And that is where this matchup gets really intriguing. Houston's corners are outstanding. Their speed, length, and instincts make it tough to win on the outside. But the middle of the field is where teams have found the occasional crack. When Houston drops into those deeper zone shells with 3 or 4 defensive backs protecting the top, everything underneath becomes a test of discipline. And that 10 to 19-yard range across the middle is exactly where Allen has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He throws those timing shots with so much velocity and anticipation that they slice right into the weak spots of defenses that live on soft space. If Buffalo leans into that, you start seeing those rhythmic throws that keep drives alive. It is not about bombs down the sideline. It is about carving up the space that Houston naturally gives. But the Bills cannot forget that this Texans defense is deadly when it forces obvious passing situations. Houston has been suffocating teams all season, holding opponents to fewer than 17 points and barely over 250 yards per game. That is dominance by every definition. You do not beat that kind of unit by trying to overwhelm it. You beat it by staying balanced, refusing to panic, and attacking exactly where the structure bends. If Buffalo stays ahead of the sticks, if Cook gets enough traction inside, and if Allen keeps his eyes sharp around the hash marks, then suddenly this unstoppable Texans defense starts to look human. Now on the other side of the ball, this becomes a story about discipline, patience, and refusing to allow the one thing Houston has struggled with all year to suddenly come alive against you. The Texans' ground game has been one of the least explosive rush attacks in the league. Bottom 10 in efficiency, bottom 10 in yards per carry, bottom 10 in missed tackles forced, bottom 10 in almost every rushing metric that actually matters. The Bills cannot afford to let that change. You cannot be the team that lets a struggling running game suddenly rediscover itself. Buffalo's own run defense has been under the microscope week after week, but this is the kind of matchup where they have to draw a line and decide that enough is enough. If Buffalo can prevent those first down runs from turning into second and short situations, they can force Houston into exactly the position they do not want to be in, asking a backup quarterback to consistently push the ball beyond his first read. And that is where everything tilts in Buffalo's favor. Davis Mills is a smart player with solid mechanics, but once defenses force him past his primary option, his production drops off a cliff. Completion percentage tanks. Efficiency collapses. Turnover chances skyrocket. It becomes a situation where every extra second he spends looking for a target becomes a chance for Buffalo's defensive front to crash the pocket. And speaking of that front, this is the kind of game where the Bills line needs to remind everyone of what they can be when they smell blood. Houston's offensive line has been patched together for what feels like 5 straight seasons, constantly trying new combinations, constantly waiting for everything to finally click. And it has not clicked yet. This is a unit that struggles with consistency, struggles with communication, and struggles with holding off defenders who win with length and leverage. That is where players like Greg Rousseau and Daquan Jones can tilt the field. If the Bills' younger edge rushers can give them quality snaps, if the interior can collapse pockets before Mills finishes his reads, then you start getting those tipped passes, those rush throws, those drive-killing mistakes that flip momentum. And looming behind all of this is the energy that always comes when Josh Allen is riding a hot streak. Coming off another monster performance, piling up touchdowns through the air and on the ground the way only he can, it becomes hard not to feel that buzz building around him again. Every time he strings together one of those historic outings, it feels like the whole team picks up that same confidence and rides it into the next game. When he is attacking defenses with both arms and legs, when he starts hitting that fearless mode where he spreads the ball around without hesitation, it becomes this wave the Bills can ride for weeks at a time. And now, with the Thursday night stage waiting, with a defense on the other side that everyone keeps calling unstoppable, with Buffalo needing to find just enough rhythm to break through all of that, you can feel the tension building. The injuries add another layer. The lineup shifts change some of the chemistry, and suddenly you get that sense that this game is going to reveal something real about where this team stands heading deeper into the season. And as the Bills head into this game carrying a list of unavailable players that keeps growing week by week, it puts even more weight on how the coaching staff adjusts. These short weeks always feel like controlled chaos, and when you lose multiple pieces at once, suddenly the playbook has to bend without breaking. Curtis Samuel being out strips away one of those reliable, versatile options that Buffalo loves to move around. Even when he is not touching the ball, his motion, alignment, and speed affect how defenses react. Losing him on a week like this forces the Bills to rethink spacing, rethink matchups, and rethink how to manipulate coverage without that quick-twitch weapon defenses always have to honor. And then you add the fact that no one really saw the moment he got hurt. No obvious play where you could point and say, there it is. Sometimes those hidden injuries are the ones that linger, and on a short week, that little bit of mystery makes it even trickier. And right when the Bills thought they were adding a fresh pair of legs to the offense, Mecole Hardman goes down. Buffalo brought him in to bring juice to the perimeter, to stretch the field horizontally, and threaten defenses in those sneaky ways only players with his acceleration can. But football is cruel. One awkward plant in the turf, one bad angle as he tried to recover from a mistake, and suddenly he is dealing with a calf issue that stops him cold. Calf injuries are tricky because they sit right at the intersection between speed and power, the two things Hardman relies on more than anything. Those injuries rarely heal fast, especially for a player whose game is built on explosion. And in situations like this, the Bills have to be smart and resist the urge to rush him back. Better to miss an extra week than lose him for a month. And then there's Dalton Kincaid, a player whose absence completely changes how the offense can disguise looks. This is not just a tight end missing time. This is a key piece of their structure, a guy who gives Buffalo the ability to play with tempo, flex into spread formations, and punish defenses that try to take away deeper routes. A hamstring injury this late in the season is the kind of thing that benches even the most competitive players for a minimum of 1 or 2 games. And with a Thursday night game squeezed right in the middle of that recovery window, the Bills were never going to push him back early. The hope now becomes that the mini-bye gives his hamstring enough time to settle before Pittsburgh, but that depends entirely on how his body responds once he starts ramping back up. Tight ends rely so heavily on sharp cuts, controlled bursts, and sudden stops that even a small setback can extend a timeline. The Bills know they will need him for the stretch run, so patience becomes their best strategy, even if it leaves a gap in the offense for now. Bills Mafia being questionable adds another layer to the puzzle. Defensive line rotations are already a delicate balancing act, and injuries at that position tend to stack up fast because of how violent and repetitive the contact is on every snap. When a shoulder issue creeps in, it affects everything: pad level, hand placement, leverage, even your ability to lock out an opposing blocker. Mathis tried to fight through it, but with how quickly this week arrived, it makes all the sense in the world for the Bills to lean on depth and protect him from worsening the problem. Sanders, Walker, and the younger rotation pieces get their chance to show what they can do, and that opportunity becomes one of the hidden storylines of the week. Sometimes injuries force you to discover something you did not even know you had. With all of that, there is still this underlying sense of urgency surrounding this game. Not because of panic, but because it feels like one of those moments where Buffalo has to remind the league that they're still a heavyweight, even with pieces missing. And so, the predictions begin to swirl, not as guarantees, but as those instinctive reads you make when you know a team as well as Bills fans know this roster. The idea that Buffalo can outgain and outscore what Houston usually allows might sound bold at first glance, but there is a logic to it. Thursday night games are messy. Defenses that thrive on precision and timing sometimes lose just enough sharpness on a short week to open the door for an offense like Buffalo's to wedge its way in. You do not need a 30-point explosion. You just need to beat the average. You need one more big play than they expect. One more drive where Josh Allen turns a broken pocket into a first down. One more moment where Houston's zone shell hesitates and Buffalo slips someone into the gap. Predicting that Houston's run game stays under 100 yards feels just as rooted in the reality of who these teams are right now. The Bills' run defense has had its moments of struggle, but this matchup is different. Houston does not bring that bully ball rushing style that punishes defenses for 4 quarters. They do not have that terrifying burst that demands 2 safeties rotate down every early down. This is a ground game that has looked out of sync all season. The linemen do not create consistent lanes. The timing between backs and blockers never feels fully cohesive. And unless Buffalo completely loses contain, this is not the kind of offense that suddenly transforms at the perfect moment on national television. You just have to hold firm and refuse to be the team that gives them their breakout performance. And then comes one of the most intriguing pieces of the entire matchup, Khalil Shakir, a player who, at his best, operates right in the middle of the field where Houston is most vulnerable. Last week's negative yard performance is the kind of statistical outlier that almost never repeats itself, especially for a receiver whose game is built on short area quickness and awareness of space. With Houston missing their starting slot defender, the door cracks open for Shakir to claim a bigger role in the game plan. If the Bills really do attack that 10 to 19-yard range the way the numbers suggest they should, Shakir becomes the natural target. He is the guy who can make himself available even against suffocating zone looks, slipping between linebackers and working underneath safeties who are more worried about Allen hitting the deep post. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. Whispers are spreading fast through the NFL grapevine, and Buffalo Bills fans might want to keep their ears perked up. Sources close to the league are hinting at a shocking twist that has sent shockwaves across locker rooms and sports bars alike. The NFL appears to have reversed a recent decision, effectively returning a victory to the Bills. The news hasn't been officially confirmed in full detail, but insiders suggest that a controversial call or administrative error may have been at the heart of the drama. Naturally, speculation is running wild, and the buzz is palpable. Buffalo, long a team with high expectations and a loyal, fiery fan base, suddenly looks like it has regained a crucial foothold in the playoff hunt. for a squad that has endured near misses and heartbreaks in recent seasons. The notion that a win has been given back could provide not just points in the standings, but a psychological boost that resonates far beyond the field. Coaches, players, and analysts are all reportedly adjusting their strategies and narratives, whispering about momentum and opportunity in ways that are rarely seen outside a championship race. Rumors suggest that the ripple effect of this decision could stretch beyond Buffalo. Rival teams in the same division are said to be scrambling to recalibrate their playoff scenarios, while fans on social media are buzzing with theories, memes, and bold predictions. Some are calling it a pivotal moment in the season, a potential turning point that might reshape the playoff landscape. Others are waiting for the league to provide a more detailed explanation, curious how this retroactive decision might affect not just the Bills, but the integrity of the games themselves. Meanwhile, the Bills organization is reportedly embracing the chaos with cautious optimism. Coaches are quietly celebrating the regained win, while players are rumored to be using it as motivation to lock in and show the league that they're not just beneficiaries of a clerical change. They're contenders. In Buffalo bars and living rooms, chants and discussions have shifted from past disappointments to the tantalizing possibilities ahead. Whether this decision will be the spark that propels the Bills deep into postseason glory or just another chapter in NFL lore, one thing is certain. The buzz around Buffalo is real, and it's electrifying the league. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.